Nate Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal, 10 3-minute rounds in the boxing ring on Saturday, July 6th in Anaheim. Now, 10 3-minute rounds of boxing, that gives us a total of 39 minutes from opening bell to the final bell. Let's compare that to 5 5-minute rounds in the cage. 5 5-minute rounds gives us a total of 29 minutes from bell to bell. So there's a 10-minute increase should their boxing fight go distance. Now, in that endurance department, I give the edge to Nate Diaz, primarily because he's also a fighter that we know who does triathlons and seems to enjoy doing those long bike rides, the swimming, and the running. In some of his fights in the cage, sometimes Masvidal has started to peter out a little bit towards the final rounds. And I expect him to come in fully conditioned for this fight, and both gentlemen do look, from judging by their physique, that they did get themselves in fighting shape, as we say. Now, in terms of technique for boxing, I also give the edge to Nate Diaz, primarily because Nate throws classic boxing combinations, and he also has devoted himself to sparring professional boxers, even when he was training solely for MMA. Jorge Masvidal, I don't think, really ventured so far into the pro boxing gyms as he was training to compete in MMA. And Jorge Masvidal doesn't always necessarily throw specific boxing combinations. They're both great MMA fighters, but I think a lot of Jorge's strengths in the cage came from his combinations that involved techniques other than just the punches. However, I will give Jorge a big advantage in terms of explosiveness. And that's because he tends to kind of fight in spurts, but he can be incredibly explosive. He's the type of fighter who's capable of that one-punch KO. Of course, we know he went viral for that one knee, 5-second KO of Ben Askren, where he just flatlined him. But it's that type of explosiveness that could lead him to get a one-punch KO in a boxing ring. Nate Diaz, by contrast, has this relentless pace of punches that are just slow and steady, and he's not looking to nail you with one hard punch, but he and his brother are known for their style where they'll just never stop and slowly pick you apart with the punches. Now, even though I would also give Nate Diaz the overall experience factor advantage in terms of boxing, based on the fact that he's done so many more rounds of boxing sparring, I still feel like Masvidal could get that one-punch explosive KO in the fight. And here's the other twist to the whole matchup. Unfortunately for Nate, he cuts so easily over that eyebrow. I think it's his right eyebrow. And I'm not sure who his cut man is for this fight coming up, but I sure hope he invested in one of boxing's best cut men. Now, here's the thing. If Nate hasn't gotten plastic surgery on that eyebrow scar yet, he's been cut so many times there that every time he gets cut, that scar tissue just gets thicker and thicker. So at this point, it's literally become a wedge that penetrates inward. So it's almost like all Jorge has to do is look at Nate's eyebrow with a mean stare, and it'll cleave open, because it's just ripe and ready to split right there, right along the edge of where that scar tissue is. Now, Nate fights out of a southpaw stance. Jorge can kind of switch from righty to lefty. So if Jorge is in righty position, the two fighters are really open to a clash of heads, as we know, when that's a very common thing that happens. So if there's a clash of heads, accidental clash of heads, and the cut opens up, and there's less than 4 rounds in the book, which means this could happen first, second, third, or during the 4th round, and then the doctor waves the fight off because the cut's too deep, it becomes a no contest. And I think that's a strong possibility in this fight. Now, if on the other hand, let's say Nate Diaz is in his southpaw stance, Jorge Masvidal's in his right-handed stance, and he lands a left hook on that same eyebrow, and the cut opens up, well, it's deemed a cut due to a valid punch, and then if Nate can't continue by doctor's orders, then Jorge wins the fight. I mean, this is also a very possible outcome for their fight. And then, of course, once we're past the 4th round, if Nate can't continue due to the cut, due to an accidental headbutt, then we go to the scorecards, and it depends just which man is ahead. If he can't continue due to the cut and it was caused by one of Jorge's punches, then Jorge wins. So, unfortunately for Nate Diaz, I think his scar tissue over his eyebrow could be a determining factor in this fight. Now, my other bigger question regarding this fight is just how badly does Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal really want to win this fight? Like, how much does winning this fight mean to both men? And from my perspective, I find it hard to believe that it's like this means everything in the world to them. I think they're already accomplished superstars under the UFC banner. They both have very successful business ventures outside of the cage or the ring. For example, Nate Diaz has his Represent clothing line, and I'm sure he has other business ventures going, perhaps a CBD line. Jorge Masvidal has his tequila line going. And of course, he is, in fact, one of the promoters for this whole card. So now, should things go the distance, right? They go all 10 rounds, Nathan doesn't get cut. Who do you think's going to win a decision if Jorge's the promoter? I'll let you guys figure that one out. Finally, in spite of all the shenanigans between the Masvidal and the Diaz camps, when both men were on the stage and being interviewed by Brian Campbell and then Jimmy Lennon at the weigh-in, they both seemed like ready to shut both these guys down in terms of them trying to stir up some rivalry between the two men. I mean, it was funny. I mean, both fighters were just... Now, of note, on the undercard of Diaz Masvidal, we have Danny Jacobs facing Shane Mosley Jr. We also have Sean Garcia facing Amado Vargas. That could turn out to be an interesting fight. We have the young, up-and-coming prodigy, Kermel Moton, fighting a gentleman who came in, I think, 3 pounds overweight. And oddly enough, that seems to be kind of a trend on this card, with at least 3 fighters coming in over their contracted weight. So what's up with that? Is everybody just copying what Ryan Garcia did in his fight versus Devin? So tell me who you think wins these fights and why. Do you have Diaz or do you have Masvidal? Do you have Jacobs or do you have Mosley? And do you have Garcia or do you have Vargas? I'm interested in reading your comments. Please comment below. If you'd love to leave a super thanks, scroll over to the right underneath this video and you can make a contribution starting at $2 US. If you prefer to head over to Buy Me a Coffee, you can purchase a coffee in increments of $5 US. And as always, if you're interested in participating in our discussions at a deeper level and accessing content early, please head over to the membership site and join today. I look forward to reading your comments.